Good afternoon and welcome from the Vicarage, Middleton in Teesdale in County Durham. Today we're going to think about the Ten Commandments. Now, most of us who go to church, read the Bible and call ourselves Christians should know the Ten Commandments, but I doubt that we do. I know because I've asked people before and I've tried to write them all down and it's difficult. But in Jesus' day, the Jewish people believed that you had to obey the law. So if you didn't know the law, then you would never be saved. And later, Christians preached that actually you were saved by God's grace regardless, and not by how many good works you achieved. Today's Old Testament passage is from the book of Exodus. God spoke these words, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery." So God rescues, God saves his people from slavery, and then, sometime later, he gives them the law. And elsewhere in the Old Testament, we see this pattern repeated. "I have planted you as a vineyard, so now you must bear fruit. I freed you from slavery, so now you must not have slaves." This is always the pattern with God. He loves us and then asks us to respond. "You shall have no other gods before me." Now, a lot of people get that commandment wrong. They think the commandment is, "You shall have no other gods but me." But God doesn't say that. He says, "before me." Now, let's recall how God told Moses who he was. Moses said to God, "If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" And God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And then he said, "Say this to the people of Israel, 'I am has sent me to you.'" And God also said, "Say this to the people of Israel, 'The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations." Now, it's quite a difficult concept to come up with, "I am," and the people of Israel came up with the word Yahweh to convey this concept of God as "I am," although in the translations of the Bible that we use the word Lord instead of Yahweh. The first commandment is not to have any gods before Yahweh. That isn't to say there is only one God, but that rather Yahweh is the one you are to worship. And let's be aware of the saying, don't know whether you've heard it, but it's very apt for today, "You become the God that you worship." If the God you worship is tribal, judgmental, exclusive, then that is how you will become. If the God you worship is infinitely loving, forgiving and inclusive, then that is how you will become. And I don't know whether you noticed, but those two gods that I've just summed up there, well, they can both be defended via passages in the Bible, and therein lies the problem. Because we need great discernment to work out what God's Spirit is speaking to us through the Scriptures. It's far too easy to take a passage at face value if it agrees with our preconceived ideas. That's a dangerous place. The second commandment continues that we are not to have any idols or any physical representations of Yahweh. And for us in the West, that might seem like a pretty pointless instruction, but actually it's highly relevant to us today. An idol doesn't need to be carved from metal or wood, because an idol is anything that stands between us and God. We all have them in our lives. We have them as certain beliefs or attitudes. And one good way of identifying our idols is to ask ourselves this: Would I allow my attitude or my belief to be publicly scrutinised? If the answer's no, then there's a good chance you have an idol. So where does this leave us? Well, we need to understand that God always starts by loving us. He doesn't wait until we are worthy. He doesn't measure us by our worthiness to receive his love. It's so easy to get caught up with the idea that we need to do certain things and obey certain commands to gain God's acceptance. It's the other way round. You and me and we are all unconditionally loved by God. Obedience to his law and living our lives by the example of Jesus is simply a response to the reality of God. Now, I discovered something on Saturday morning after I'd written this. Now, I'm going to read this because I thought it was very pertinent for today. It's written by Richard Rohr, who's a Jesuit priest, lives in America, a theologian and author. And he says this: one of the keys to wisdom is to recognise our own biases, our own addictive preoccupations, those things to which for some reason we refuse to pay attention. People can't see what they can't see because their biases get in the way. Their biases surround them like a high wall, trapping them in deception and delusion. So we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. We see the things we want to see, the things that confirm our assumptions and our preferred way of looking at the world. We sang 3 lovely hymns today at church. Well, we didn't sing them. We had them sung for us and we listened to them. We had "O Worship the Lord" in the beauty of holiness, which, if you can find it, it sort of sums up what we should be thinking about today, is to put God first, is to worship God and give thanks for all that we have received. So, until next week, may the peace of the Lord be with you and those you love, and may you know God's blessing in your life. Amen.